Approaching the halfway point in the season, and we find ourselves returning to Donington Park. Let's see how the main contenders fared during the first qualifying session. With only hundredths of a second separating the first few drivers, we should have a cracker of a race on our hands.
Okay, so one thing I have managed to certify with myself is I need to cut that chicane if I'm gonna put in a reasonable lap time. That's basically what needs to happen here. Because, well, to put it simply, I am not good at qualifying in the wet. At least not here at Donington, apparent as it might seem, because I've qualified 11th. Well, thus breaks the streak I had of starting in the top 10 in every race as a result of that. But at least I can say the Renaults aren't faring much better than I am, because they were only starting in the second and third rows, as I already forced one of them off track in turn 1. I'm immediately up to 6th position, and really just hoping I can tiptoe my way around the Donington short track, as it is called in this game. And just really trying to see if I can manage to make something work. So the two Audis at the moment seem to be the superior cars at this stage in the running, and they seem to be pulling away as I spin one of the Hondas, and there I can see Menu. I'm going to try and go for a move on him, and already I have taken him out. Well, at least that means I don't have to worry about... Well, I wouldn't say... Wait, hold on. I wasn't meaning to take him out. It was just one of those racing deals when I was heading down into the corner. I was basically trying to at least force him wide, but apparent as it might be, I end up with the same outcome I had with the Audi, unfortunately. So Menu is basically out of the running order. Even if I was making contact with him, I wasn't making it intentional. I was just simply trying to make sure he ran wide at the hairpin without hitting anything, and unfortunately the outcome is, well, he basically went straight into the tyre barrier and flipped. There's no other explanation for it. Even if I did have any involvement in it, I can assure you it wasn't intentional. It was just one of those racing deals. No more, no less. But anyways, I am now up into 2nd position. I was trying to see if I could at least force Menu wide, but unfortunately, because I pushed him, I effectively wrecked him in some instances. But I'm not going to take too much of the blame because, well, I've been wrecked by the AI numerous times, and it is fair to say I was needing to at least prove I wouldn't be a slouch if I was going to go for the maneuver. But I can assure you that to me personally, I don't think it was intentional. I mean, I was just trying to force him wide, and then ultimately, he basically dive bombed into the corner. He wasn't really thinking about using the brakes, and he just simply went straight into the wall, almost as if he thought nothing was there. But either way, it doesn't matter because I'm up in the lead now. I honestly feared history might repeat itself from what happened the first time around. Although, that's except for saying, of course, that with the Audi, I think it was at the end of lap 2 when I basically crashed menu. But either way, I don't think it really matters this time around because, well, I was basically trying to force menu wide. He wasn't really on the brakes until he was well deep into the corner. And then once he was well deep into the corner, he basically just went straight into the wall. And he wasn't really prepared to stop either, which is something else I will say, you know, to be fair. But anyways, so lap 5 now here at Donington, and I am closing in on my best interval time, as of which my current best interval time is a 1 minute 11.88. And it does look as though I am slowly pulling away from the field. But one thing I've established is from qualifying, a lot of my time is going to be gained in that chicane, and what that therefore means is I need to cut the corner in order for me to get the strongest possible qualifying time. At least if I want to get inside the top 10, then that's pretty much the sort of manoeuvre I need to make. I was fearful of knowing if history was going to repeat itself. I wouldn't say I was entirely at fault, because when I looked at menu, he didn't really seem bothered to step on the brakes, and ultimately, as a result of him basically going well deep into the corner, he practically wrecked himself. There isn't really anything else I could say in the whole of that ordeal. I did wonder if something like this was going to happen, and unfortunately it did happen the way it did. But again, I'm still in this for points. I can assure you, in saying it wasn't an intentional incident, it was just one of those racing deals. It's also because menu didn't really bother to step on the brakes once he was well deep into the corner. He was basically just wanting him to literally torpedo him into the wall, almost as if he was trying to put me in for a steward's inquiry. Although I'm pretty sure he didn't have his brake lights on when he went into the hairpin. Sorry, the chicane, yeah. But anyways, I am slowly pulling away from the rest of the field. I'm going to try and see how much time I can gain from just cutting the chicane, because I know there could be a significant time gain, even though it's not going to happen on this lap, because, well, I wasn't able to use it to great effect. So closing in on some lapped traffic now. I can see Derek Warwick there in the silver Vauxhall. He was battling there with, I think, Tim Harvey in the Peugeot. Already 2 cars now 1 lap down at the start of lap 8. 7 laps are in the books. I'm going to assume one of the Fords must be in the points, because essentially I partly crashed out menu when we went into turn 1. I did have a huge lead coming into this weekend anyway, but it's just a shame to say things happened the way they did. And looks as though one of the Peugeots was trying to force me into the wall, but thankfully that did not work out for him, because he ended up spinning out one of the Fords in the process. And now I've been given a dangerous driving warning. Even though I don't think I was the one for causing that incident, I'm pretty sure if they were referring to the spin that happened after I got spun out at the chicane, then I can assure you that was not of my doing. But if you're referring to me basically barging my way through the back markers, then yes, okay, I do accept that. But these things will happen. You just have to hope it doesn't happen too many times. Although, I think this was effectively the same race where, ironically, I won here at Donington once, and I was basically penalised for an incident I had no such involvement of causing, but I was effectively involved in the crash when it happened, and ultimately the stewards basically decided they were going to give me 2 dangerous driving warnings for whatever reason. Shouldn't really surprise me to say I'm already on my first warning, because, well, if I'm being completely honest, I'm surprised to say they did not penalise me earlier in the season. Although I guess part of the reason for that is because, well, fucking me dominating those races when I did. And basically just proving that I was not going to be a pushover. Yeah, I should have been on the brakes. There was no way that was going to work. But either way, there is a way to do it. You just have to know if you can be audacious enough to prove that you want to gain about as much of the overall lap time as you want to gain on the AI. Plus, furthermore, this is technically wet weather racing, so at this stage, probably shouldn't surprise me too much to say I'm already given a warning. I know that things obviously tend to get more wacky when it's in wet conditions, as in they tend to be more chaotic when it's in wet conditions compared to dry conditions. But yeah, I can definitely seem to recall being given a dangerous driving warning earlier in this game for an incident I literally had no responsibility of causing whatsoever. But yet, for whatever reason, they still decided to penalise me anyway, because they thought I partly caused it. Even though, to be completely honest, I was just a victim of circumstances in that regard. And coming up to overlap my teammate now, Calvin Burt. As I can see, one of the Ford Mondeos is right behind him, and even though I'm dominating, I'm not having a very good time of staying on track at the moment. Well, it's definitely not the way I would have wanted this race to go down, with me and Menu basically locking horns, heading into the chicane. And Menu basically partly wrecking himself out because he didn't bother to step on the brakes. Okay, this tactic is not going to work the way I think it's going to work. But still, I will take part of the blame for the incident, but I'm not going to take the full blame because I did notice Menu did not have his brakes on when he was heading into the corner. It's almost as if he was basically wanting me to wreck him in some cases. But even if he was, I've said this time and time again, it was not intentional. And at the moment, I'm driving appallingly, but I somehow have the lead of this race, in spite of my ineptitude and mediocrity at this stage of the race. But anyway, continuing to set the lap times here at the Donington short circuit, and still continuing to lead essentially, as it looks as though Calvin has now been overtaken by the Ford Mondeo of, I think, Will Hoy is who that was, who has now built himself up an advantage, although that probably doesn't matter now because I put Calvin one lap down in this race. It is fair to say I'm clearly thrashing my teammate in terms of overall lap speed. But either way, I can at least say whilst I am leading this race, I'm quite sure the second race is not going to be handed to me on a plate as easily as this one has been. I'm also quite sure Menu is going to be fighting back with a vengeance. And if he does decide to wreck me on the first lap, then so be it. I will admit, I had some involvement, but I didn't have too much involvement. As they say many times before, it's just one of those racing deals. And once again, my race pace has clearly outshone my qualifying pace. And it looks as though, barring any serious mistakes at this point, like this is going to be yet another win for me and the Volvo. And that, of course, is barring any serious mistakes at this stage. And I'm also quite sure that once we get to later on in the season, I'm pretty sure... I'm trying to think about how to pronounce it. I'm pretty sure by the time we get to later on in the season, Alan Menu is definitely going to be fighting back with a vengeance in the second race, the way I see it. I mean, I will still increase my points lead, but it is fair to say this is probably going to be the biggest points lead I have in this entire championship, because I don't think Menu is going to let another race like this one slip through his fingers in terms of where he could gain points on me. But either way, you know, as I said before, it was just one of those racing deals. We were both trying to go into the corner. Menu didn't really have his brake lights on when he was in the corner, and ultimately, just like that, he basically just went into the wall. But either way, I don't think it really matters too much, because, well, considering what this game has put me through so far, in terms of the heartache, agony, pain and torture for certain races, it's kind of a showcase to say why I personally don't think... Whilst I can feel some contrition for the accident, I don't really feel too much contrition because I know this AI will basically bite me back just as hard, if not harder. Okay, so still maintaining control here at Donington for race 3 on the schedule, and hopefully I will at least manage. Oh, for fuck's sake. I just cannot drive this thing. Whether I'm going slow or fast, I literally just cannot drive this thing. It's almost as if every spin I have is just becoming more and more unavoidable for some very bizarre reason. But anyways, 18 laps are down and we still have 7 laps to go. And it is fair to say, aside from all the spins I've had up to this stage in the race, it's pretty much been smooth sailing, in spite of the hissingly torrential downpour. I'm racing in here today, although I'm quite sure the second race is not going to be as easy as this one. I mean, I'm pretty sure Menu is going to fight back with a vengeance in the second race. I'm also quite sure he's probably going to beat me as well. Now, am I actually going to gain some time here? Well, getting past the Honda there of Tarquini, and I do set a new best lap time officially, so it does go to show if you can manage to cut the chicane in the right spot, you can potentially gain some track time. Even if it's not a lot, you can still gain at least some track time. But anyways, don't really know the running order, except for saying I'm leading, because unfortunately there is no leaderboard in this game in terms of race time. I don't really know what the running order is, but I'm going to assume it must be the two Audis ahead of Plato, and I think I can also make that same assumption with one of the Hondas also being inside the top 5 as well. But sometimes, you know, it's just one of those racing deals. You gotta do what you gotta do. Even if that means accidentally crashing other drivers in the process. I should also mention this will be the halfway point of the championship. So once the second race on the Donington short circuit is done, we will basically be halfway in the championship. And we will still have ...12 races remaining by the time we are finished here. So 21 laps are on the board here at Donington. Really hopeful in saying I can manage to keep myself in contention for as long as I can. And now it seems as though I've opened myself up to an unassailable lead, as I would have expected, because Donington arguably is one of my best tracks by results. And heading through the chicane now, although technically cutting it, and finding a little bit of track time there as I begin to start another lap here. 3 laps to go here at Donington. I can basically coast the rest of the way if I really want to. But I am trying to see if I can at least get some improvements on my race times. Of course, I did have quite an astonishing lead over Menu heading into this race anyway, and it is unfortunate to say history repeated itself the way it did. I was trying my hardest to not make that the case, but sadly, however, it did become the case. In some cases, I'm partly ruing over it, but in some cases, I'm not but in many other cases, I'm not ruing over it too much, because it does at least give me some leverage to say I can manage to at least open myself out to a more comfortable lead. And doesn't look like my lap times are going to be improving any more than they have done. But anyways, so just got one lap to go here at Donington after this one, and then we can move onwards to race 2, and where I'm pretty sure I will not be handed a race win over to me on a plate. Even though I'm quite sure, because of Menu's DNF, the points interval is probably going to be more than 40 points now. You know, I probably could show off a pit stop now if I really wanted to. That probably is something I could consider doing, considering I do have enough of a lead over the two Audis by this point. I probably could show that off, come to think of it. Just because, well, basically, you know, it's the final lap. I haven't really got anything to lose at this point. I'm quite sure I'm well ahead of both the Audis. So, you know something? I might actually try it. I might actually show off a pit stop in this game, even if you're not going to see much of it. But anyway, so just got one corner left now here at the Donington short circuit. That is the chicane. Cuts off the two hairpins, I think, as I head through here, and I win race 1 at Donington, short.
The new Volvo driver has done it again, taking the checkered flag in style. So let's have a closer look at the final positions.
Are you fucking kidding me? Paul Radicic in the Ford finished in 8th. Are you actually joking? Anyways, James Thompson was 2nd, followed by Plato. Beeler finished in 4th ahead of Bintcliffe, then it was Leslie ahead of Tarquini, and Radicic finished 4th in the Ford. How the fuck? Anyways, Calvin Burt was 9th, and Anthony Reid completes the points in the 2nd Nissan. Then we had Tim Harvey ahead of Derek Warwick, Will Hoy, John Cleland, and Patrick Watts completes the finishing order, and Menu wrecked out basically at the end of lap 1. I had part involvement with it, but I wouldn't say I had full involvement in causing that wreck, because, well, he didn't really bother to step on the brakes once we were in the corner, and he was basically just wanting to hit the wall anyway, so partly me to blame, but also partly him to blame as well. That's all I'm saying. Anyways, one race down, let's move on to the second one.